welcome to our webinar announcing our Spring 2014 release of Kainos Smart, the unique test automation management suite for your Workday implementation. My name is Sheila Gormley and I head up sales and marketing for our Smart product. We have a pretty varied audience today. Some of you are existing Workday and Smart customers. Some of you have seen earlier versions of Smart, but many of you are seeing Smart today for the very first time. It's great to have you all here. Welcome also to those of you who are Workday partners, and not to forget, of course, the Workday employees among you. I hope that today's webinar will have something of interest to you all, so let's get started. With me today is Doug Timpe, VP of Quality Assurance of Workday. Doug is going to introduce the session, but unfortunately will not be able to stay for the Q&A. However, please do feel free to submit questions for Doug, and we'll follow up on those. I will then take you through a brief introduction to Kainos, our work as a Workday partner, and our Smart product. Rory Digby, Senior Product Specialist, will then give a brief product demo showcasing the key features of Smart. And then Mike Herriger, Senior Manager of HR Systems at Tyco and one of our early adopter customers, will take us through their experience of Smart. We'll wrap up with a Q&A session, as Brent said, so please do submit your questions as we go through the session. Doug, over to you.
All right, thanks Sheila, and thank you to everyone else on the call today. My name is Doug Timpe, and I'm the VP of Quality Assurance at Workday. At Workday, we take quality and customer satisfaction very seriously. Our QA team is comprised of subject matter experts and testing professionals with a heavy focus on automated testing. It is our responsibility, of course, to find bugs and deliver a robust set of feature functionality for you, our customers. But at the same time, we also recognize that customers have a testing need above and beyond this, specifically to verify your specific data and configurations, especially during the implementation cycle. I'm happy to endorse the Kainos Smart tool as a solution for optimizing this customer testing and verification activities. Kainos is a trusted partner that has been working closely with our Workday QA team for several years. They are a Workday certified solution partner and the only partner with a long-term formal relationship with the Workday QA team. So I feel confident in saying that they know Workday and they know testing. So I'm excited to see the progression of their Smart tool, and I hope you all get some value out of the presentation today. I'm looking forward to more customers taking advantage of their offering to speed up the testing and the implementation activities, which ultimately gives you, our customers, even more confidence in your Workday products. So with that, I will hand it back over to Sheila, and I'm excited to see what you all have to offer today with the Smart tool.
Thank you, Doug. It was really helpful. So let me start just by introducing a little bit about Kainos. Who is Kainos? Kainos is an IT solutions company with global reach, specializing in cloud, portal, and mobile technologies. We've been in operation for over 26 years now, and our customers are serviced by our 500+ strong delivery team. The solutions we deliver range from application management services through to complex systems integration and development projects. We've also built up an enviable product portfolio over the years through our product innovation teams. Our products include Evolve for managing patient records, and very importantly, Kainos Smart, which we're here to talk about today. Specific to Workday then, Kainos has a dedicated Workday practice comprising over 70 consultants. We are a Workday triple player, and Doug alluded to this in his introduction. Firstly, we've been an implementation partner with Workday for a number of years now, and our team has successfully implemented a number of solutions and provided consultancy and integrations expertise on many more. Our team includes HCM specialists, integration experts, quality assurance experts, as well as engagement or project managers. As Doug mentioned, we've also been a Workday quality assurance partner for many years. Here we have a team of people working with Doug as part of his internal Workday quality assurance team, something we'll understand the importance of a little bit later on. And finally, once again, Doug mentioned that Smart is a Workday certified partner product. Our relationship with Workday doesn't end there. I'm pleased to announce that we're also a Workday customer and have actually just gone live with our first wave of our in-house Workday deployment in just 12 weeks, assisted by Smart, of course. So that's Kainos in a nutshell. Why should you consider Kainos when it comes to testing? Earlier, Doug described Workday as a highly configurable enterprise product, and that you as customers need to verify that your Workday configuration is working correctly. To date, Workday have over 600 customers, all in one version and all requiring testing. Whilst this cloud model has lots of advantages, wouldn't it be great if we could automate that testing? And in Kainos, we believe we have achieved just that. Firstly, we have a rich heritage in testing expertise, including test automation. Through our Workday implementation practice, we understand what's involved in implementing a Workday solution end-to-end. We understand the product and we understand the domain space. As a company, we develop enterprise software solutions. It's just what we do. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, we have an excellent track record in innovating new products. And last but not least is our work with Workday as a quality assurance partner. Why is this important? Well, this gives us early access to product updates and new features that are coming from Workday. In this way, we're able to keep Smart up to date with the latest Workday releases. When you get a new release of Workday, Smart is ready too. So for example, when you have to switch over to the new Workday UI in Workday 22, Smart will be ready to go. All these credentials leave Kainos in a truly unique position to deliver a test automation solution for your Workday implementation. That's Smart. SMART stands for Scalable, Measurable, Automated, Repeatable Testing. In essence, it's a test automation management suite for testing your Workday implementation. Like Workday, SMART is a cloud-based service, so there's no on-site footprint or costly on-site maintenance, and it's been developed specifically for the business user. We have taken the complexity of test automation away from the end user and encapsulated it into an easy-to-use user interface. There are no test automation scripts for you to maintain. Kainos does all of that for you. What do we mean by automation? Well, when we talk about test automation, we simply mean automating the tests that you would otherwise carry out manually. In a manual world, you create your test cases manually, you manually execute them, and you manually validate the results. To repeat the same test, you have to do it all again. Those of you who are involved in testing will appreciate that this can be tedious and very time consuming. Automation will allow you to automate some or all of these steps. But automation doesn't make mistakes, doesn't need think time, or to take tea breaks or holidays. It's a bit like your manual tester on steroids. We'll see later how in our Spring 2014 release, Kainos Smart includes functionality to automate the creation of your test cases. Once you've created your test cases, Smart automates the execution of those test cases and assists you in validating the results. Once created, you can reuse your test cases again and again in subsequent test cycles. Just before we see the product in action, let's summarize the functionality available. So there are two major themes in our Smart 2014 release. Firstly, is to incorporate support for the new Workday User Interface. And secondly, the introduction of an easy-to-use wizard-style interface to automate your test case creation, something that those of you who are existing customers will be glad to see. We've also extended the list of business processes that are supported across the product, and the full list of those can be made available on request. Smart, in terms of the functionality that the product supports, Smart supports the end-to-end configuration testing of your core HCM business processes. In our demo today, we'll see how to use Smart to create, execute, validate, and reuse test cases for a request one-time payment process, a process that the majority of you will be familiar with. We'll also see how to use Smart to test your business process security policy. So for example, can I request a one-time payment for myself, or can I request a one-time payment for my team? And finally, we'll look at how Smart helps organizations test their integrations. When I talk to customers about testing integrations, the single biggest challenge that comes back is the need to have the appropriate transactions processed in Workday to feed the integration test. For the test to be meaningful, I need to process volume transactions that provide the coverage I need to test my integration. So for example, if I'm testing a payroll integration, I need to process lots of hires, compensation changes, request leave of absence, return from leave of absence, request one-time payments, terminations, and so on. This can take a lot of time manually in order to get test case coverage that I need. With Smart, you can automate your hires and other processes that you need to feed your downstream integration. For you, you can then focus on testing the actual integration itself. And this has been a huge benefit to many of our customers. Smart also allows you to automate the execution of your integrations. And if you're like some of our customers who have 100+ integrations, this is much more efficient than manually entering the input parameters for each one in turn. Collectively, through all of this functionality, Smart is adding value to our customers throughout the lifetime of the Workday solution. For example, our customers are using Smart during the implementation phase of their Workday project to reduce the amount of manual testing effort associated with the deployment. Post-deployment, our customers are using Smart to test ongoing changes to their Workday implementation, perhaps as a result of an upgrade or simply changes in the organization itself. Whatever the reason, your BPs, integrations, and wider Workday configurations will undoubtedly change over time. We'll come back to these points later, but for now, I'll hand over to Rory, who'll take us through a brief product demo.
Thank you, Sheila, and thank you all for attending our webinar today. As testers, we are often asked to strike a balance between the amount of testing required and the acceptable level of risk. That balance is then challenged by the realities of time and resource availability, and the scale tips towards taking on more risk than we would like. I'm going to tip that balance back in your favor. Welcome to Smart Spring 2014. Every client is provided with their own dedicated tenant. Every user that logs into Smart lands on the My Test Run screen, which lists all test runs created, executed, and validated by that user. In this demonstration, I will be testing the request one-time payment business process from our own Kainos Workday tenant. As is the case with all testing, the first decision to be made is, what do I need to test? We can see here that all one-time payments must be approved by the HR executive, so I'm going to create a test to check that. We can also see that one-time payments of $15,000 or more will require a second approval by the compensation partner. We also know that as defined in the business process security policy, employees should not be able to request one-time payments for themselves. So I will create a test to check that also. Now I know what I need to test. Let's see how easy it is to create those tests in Smart. One of the major new features in the Spring 2014 release of Smart is wizard-based test cases. This is a facility that allows users to quickly and effectively create a large set of tests. It does this by dynamically interacting with your Workday tenant to use your configuration and data. First, we select the business process we want to create tests for. Then we select which tenant we want to take the configuration and data from. The first test we create will be to check that one-time payments less than $15,000 require only a single approval. We select the employee who will request the one-time payment. We'll go for Jill Black. And then select the employee who will receive the one-time payment. Let's pick Bridget Jones. We then start entering the specifics of the one-time payment. Let's pause for a second to consider what we are seeing here. Smart has dynamically retrieved the one-time payment plans from the Workday tenant. This means that each of you in attendance would see a unique list based on your own unique Workday configuration. But why is that important? As a tester, if I decide I want to validate all of the one-time payment plans configured in my tenant, I can instantly see that I will need at least 6 different test cases, one for each one-time payment plan configured in my tenant. The same is true for the reasons I have configured in my tenant. But let's get back to the purpose of this particular test. I want to check that one-time payments below $15,000 only require one approval. So I'll enter an amount of $12,000 and click Next. The one-time payment information I've just entered is the exact same information you would input into your Workday tenant if you were manually executing this same test. To complete the test case creation, we enter some identification and validation data, a meaningful description of what the test is, a unique test case ID for tracking, and most importantly, what do I expect the result of this test to be? Before finishing, we decide whether we want to rescind the completed business process or cancel an incompleted business process. We then add our test case to the basket. As mentioned earlier, Smart can be used to test the business process security policy. So let's create a test case to check if Jill Black can request a one-time payment for herself. We repeat the same steps through the wizard, selecting Jill Black as the initiator, and Jill Black as the person who will receive the one-time payment. We proceed through the wizard. Again, we enter a description and unique test case ID. And most importantly for this scenario, the expected result. This is a negative test case. We are not expecting the business process to complete because employees should not be able to request a one-time payment for themselves. We complete the rest of the process and add the test case to the basket. This process can then be repeated until the full set of test cases has been added to the basket. Upon clicking Generate, Smart automatically creates an Excel spreadsheet populated with all the data for my complete set of test cases. This data is unique to the configuration and data of the tenant selected at the start of the wizard. This is what we call Smart Books. We can see here that the first test we created was a one-time payment to Bridget Jones for $12,000. This test will validate that one-time payment amounts below $15,000 only require one approval. And here we can see the second test we created where Jill Black will try to give herself a one-time payment. Now we've created our test cases, it's time to execute them. Creating a test run in Smart is a very straightforward process. The business process is added to the test run and the Smart Book we created using the wizard is uploaded. We then give the test run a unique name following whatever naming convention is in use and save the test run. In this demonstration, I'm only testing a single business process, but it is important to point out that multiple business processes can be added to the same test run. Request one-time payment is a relatively straightforward process, but Smart can also be used to create, execute, and validate more complex business processes. I have already prepared a Smart Book to test the hire process using the wizard. It contains 5 test cases, so I've set up a test run for that. We are now ready to start the execution. Because Smart can execute test runs at the same time, we can start the execution for both. I kick off the request one-time payment test run first. As multiple Workday tenants can be configured in Smart at any one time, we have to select the tenant we want to execute the one-time payment test in. I'll also kick off the execution for the hire test run. It's hard to visualize what Smart is actually doing at this point. So to illustrate that, I have prepared this video of what is actually happening in the cloud. When a test run is executed, Smart opens up a browser in the cloud and navigates to the Workday tenant you selected. It then logs into the tenant as the person who will start the business process and begins to enter the data from the Smart book. Smart doesn't need to take time to think about what data it needs to enter. It doesn't need to take a coffee break. In fact, it doesn't even need to sleep. When a step is complete, Smart reads from the Workday tenant which employee is responsible for the next step in the process. Smart then logs out and logs back into Workday as the appropriate employee and completes the next step in the business process. This cycle of step completion and identification of the next employee responsible continues until the business process completes successfully or encounters an error. This is unattended execution. While it's running, you can decide what new Workday module will benefit your organization most while Smart is working away in the cloud. Or, if the sun is shining, kick off a suite of test runs late in the day and catch a few holes of golf on the way home. Smart won't tell your boss, and you can check on its progress using your tablet or phone while you work on your putting. Although the speed at which Smart processes a transaction in Workday is impressive, this is not actually what brings the greatest benefit. As well as executing this test case, Smart is executing the rest of the test cases in that test run and the test cases from the other test runs you kicked off, and it's doing that all at the same time. Consider that for a second. How much manual effort would it take to achieve the same rate and volume of execution? So, we have created test cases using the wizard. We have executed them quickly and efficiently. Now we want to validate the results of that execution. Let's go in and have a look at the one-time payment test run that is now completed. The first thing to point out is that Smart automatically records the status of the execution, i.e., did the business process successfully complete or fail to complete in the Workday tenant. If our expected result matches the actual result of the test, then we set the result as a pass here. Let's have a look at the first test case we created in the wizard. We are expecting a successful completion with only a single approval because the one-time payment amount is for $12,000, which is below the $15,000 threshold for a second approval. Smart records a log of the steps completed as part of the request one-time payment process. Note that Smart automatically logs in as the appropriate user for each step of the process. And we can see that for this test case, only one approval was processed. We have validated that the actual result of this request one-time payment matches our expected result, so we can mark that test as passed. Now let's have a look at the test case we created where Jill Black was trying to request a one-time payment for herself. We didn't expect this process to complete because Jill Black should not be allowed to request a one-time payment for herself. We can see that the process did not complete, but let's validate why it didn't complete. When Smart cannot complete a business process, it takes a screenshot of the tenant at the point execution stops. In this instance, we can see that Jill Black can start the request one-time payment process, but it stops at the point where she is trying to select herself as the recipient of the one-time payment. So again, we have validated that the actual result matches our expected result, and we can mark that test as passed. Every organization goes through changes, and those changes will result in updates to the business process configurations in the Workday tenant. Smart can be used to test those changes as well. As an example, let's consider a change to the one-time payment process. We already know that only one-time payments of $15,000 and above require a second approval. Due to new regulations, this threshold is being reduced from $15,000 to $10,000, so the request one-time payment configuration is going to have to be updated. We have already created a set of tests for the request one-time payment process using the wizard. The first of those tests is a one-time payment of $12,000 to Bridget Jones. We can reuse that test run to test the new configuration. For the same set of tests, we now expect a different result. The one-time payment of $12,000 to Bridget Jones should now go through a second approval. The reuse functionality in Smart is very simple. Select the test run you want to reuse, change the name, save the test run, and execute it. We have re-executed the one-time payment test where Bridget Jones receives a one-time payment of $12,000. After the configuration change I have just made, I will be expecting 2 approvals. We can see the first approval and the second. I would then mark this result as passed, just like before. When all the test runs have been validated and all results have been recorded, reports can be generated to graphically illustrate the overall outcome of the test execution. So just to recap, I created test cases quickly and effectively using the wizard. I executed those test cases all at the same time. I validated and recorded the results of those tests. I reused some of those tests to validate a configuration change in my Workday tenant. And then I generated a report to show my boss that he should be requesting a one-time payment from me. Smart can also be used to test integrations. Sheila gave the example earlier of how Smart can be used to test the payroll integration. All of those one-time payments I executed will feed downstream to my payroll integration. As well as that, I can use the wizard again to create test cases for the other business processes that feed into payroll: hire, request compensation change, request leave of absence, termination. After I have created and executed the required volume and coverage of transactions in Workday using Smart, it can also launch my payroll integration for me. Not only that, it can launch all of my integrations at one time. The process to launch integrations is the exact same as the one you saw for business processes. I create a test run, I add the integration types I require into the test run, upload the Smart books which contain the launch parameters for the various integrations. Name the test run, save it, and execute it. Smart can launch all types of integrations. This includes EIB inbound and outbound, Studio, and the various types of packaged integrations like PCAWs and core connectors. Some of our customers have over 100 integrations configured in their Workday tenant, so the ability to feed them with a volume and variety of transactions before launching them all at one time is a huge benefit. When the integrations are complete, the output files can be extracted from the Workday tenant and then compared against a set of baseline files using a file comparison tool. Here we can see that there is a delta in the positive pay file. When we look at the detail, we can see that the one-time payment amounts after the upgrade are 10 times larger than they should be. At the start of this demonstration, I told you that I was going to tip the balance against risk back in your favor. So be smart. Don't take the risk. Thank you for your time. Back over to you, Sheila.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Ray. So in the demo, you've had a whistle-tops tour of Smart. We've seen very quickly how to create, execute, validate, and subsequently reuse test cases in testing your request one-time payment process. We also had a brief look at launching integrations, and also verifying the integration results. That's a piece of functionality that one of our customers, Tyco Price, is using very, very heavily to test their 100+ integrations today. Let's recap now on how all of this functionality helps you during the different stages of your Workday lifecycle. So during your implementation stages, your teams will be spending a lot of time going through an iterative process of creating and refining your business processes. As you make changes, you will of course manually test your business process to some degree. Manual testing at this stage will be invaluable in helping to train your users on the use of Workday. So we're not suggesting replacing that important step, but rather augmenting it with Smart. For example, you may configure your process to a point where you're reasonably happy with it. Then you may run a few sample tests through that process. But in order to get complete test coverage and fully verify your process, you can use Smart to create, execute, and validate all the test cases that you need. I was talking to one customer recently who had to consider over 1,000 test cases just to address their absence plans alone. Once you have your test cases, you can of course reuse them as you continue to refine your business process. So those of you who are in implementation phases will understand that you're going through lots of iterations and prototyping, and having a tool to help you test those changes as you go forward will be really useful. But it doesn't stop there. You can also use Smart to automate your processes to a particular point. So for example, a hire process can involve lots of steps. Hire, change org assignments, edit personal info, propose compensation, assign pay group, and so on. If I'm working to tweak a step perhaps towards the end of the process, maybe it's the assign pay group one, I can use Smart to automate the hire up to that point, then complete or troubleshoot that area that I'm interested in manually. Again, I don't have to go back and test the entire process when I want to focus on just one area. Perhaps your organization has to consider testing across multiple regions. Well, we'll hear later how Smart helped Tyco achieve just that. Overall, we believe that using Smart will help to reduce the testing effort associated with your implementation by as much as 30 to 50%. Post-deployment, even if your organization rarely changes, you will need to periodically run regression tests, so for example following a Workday upgrade. Using Smart will reduce the cost and time and overheads for doing this. And if you've been using Smart during your implementation, then of course you'll be able to reuse the test cases you've already prepared. We all know that the majority of organizations do change, and using Smart will allow you to quickly retest your changes, as we saw in the example that Rory gave earlier when we changed the request one-time payment approval threshold. Similarly, if you introduce new business processes and integrations, you can quickly add these to your test suite using Smart. Over time, you will realize more and more savings in using Smart as your test suite matures. So let me conclude by summarizing the key benefits of using Smart. I hope that in this session we have shown how Smart will result in reduced time and effort for your customer testing. Maybe you can use that time to explore some of the new features and modules in Workday that will even add further business benefits to your organization. We can see how Smart automation will deliver improved test quality and increased coverage across your tests. On the previous slide, we explored some of the ways that Smart is helping our customers reduce costs throughout the term of their Workday solution. And overall, these benefits will give you increased confidence in your Workday solution. On the whole, we believe that using Smart will help you to maximize the investment you've made in Workday. Okay, so that concludes the formal part of the presentation. I'm now joined by Mike Herriger, who's Senior Manager at Tyco.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, this is Mike from Tyco. Let me start off with giving a brief introduction about Tyco. Tyco is the largest global fire and security company with $10 billion in revenue and 69,000 employees in 50-plus countries around the world. Tyco serves over 3 million customers with the latest fire protection and security products and services. My role at Tyco is I'm responsible for Tyco's HR technology, which includes a number of HR applications, one of which is Workday and Human Capital Management System. So as we rolled out Workday, I was the technical lead for Tyco's implementation, and now that we are rolled out, I am leading Workday support. As part of Workday support, I am responsible for Workday update testing. And I want to just share a little bit about our details of our implementation. We completed our implementation of Workday HCM in November of 2013. We had a wave approach where we divided countries and we rolled out in 4 waves. And we completed that final wave, as I mentioned, in November. And when we're all done with our implementation of Workday HCM, we were able to roll out to our 69,000 employees in 50-plus countries on 6 continents, supporting 21 business processes, as well as 10 business languages in Workday. Also, as we were rolling out Workday with our wave approach, we had an implementation going on, but then we also had production for the waves that were rolled out that we needed to support, as well as address Workday updates. So as we were addressing the Workday updates, we were doing a lot of things manually, and later on we'll talk about how we have used Smart to help us with automating some of these transactions that we need to perform in Workday.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So perhaps you could tell us about the testing challenges you faced before introducing Kainos Smart?
Sure. We went through a number of Workday updates before we started using Kainos Smart. We initially completed all of our testing manually without use of any tools, and our strategy was pretty comprehensive. We wanted to make sure that we tested all of our key business processes and also all of our integrations. Particularly, Sheila, as you mentioned earlier, about generating the necessary transactions to be able to test your downstream integrations and payrolls. That was a big challenge to set up all those test cases and to also transact them in Workday. So as part of our update test strategy, we leveraged our core team for testing, as well as we had a regional approach where we reached out to our HR operations people around the world in the regions to participate in the testing. We built up a library of almost 800 test cases scenarios that were executed by the regional teams. But it was a big time commitment for all of these resources to be able to run through these 800 test cases in Workday and perform them manually in Workday.
Sure, totally. Were you happy with the coverage you were getting across the Workday implementation at that point, Mike?
Yes. We felt comfortable with the coverage, and that we had a pretty comprehensive test strategy, and we had most of our test cases well defined. The part was challenging was actually the executing of these test cases in Workday. We found it to be very time consuming, and then as we leveraged people in the regions, these people all have basically full-time jobs already, so it was just time consuming.
Understand. Okay. So you started working with Kainos during the Smart Early Adopter Program. Tell us a little bit about your engagement with Kainos.
Sure. So we participated in the Kainos Smart Early Adopter Program, and we first used Kainos Smart with Workday Update 20. So, as we were part of the Early Adopter Program, Kainos was a great partner with Tyco, and also Tyco, a great partner with Kainos. Tyco was able to help shape the Kainos Smart tool via the Early Adopter Program. Kainos made multiple visits to the U.S. to meet with my team and I. They demonstrated functionality early and often and got feedback from Tyco. And as Tyco made suggestions or asked for different feature and functionality, Kainos worked with us to evaluate those features, and a lot of those features that we requested, made it into the product. So through this early adopter program, this led to a production-ready version that we were able to use for our Workday 20 update. So with using Kainos Smart for the first time for automated testing for Workday Update 20, we did have to make an initial investment of getting all of our test cases set up in Kainos. And at that time, I'm really excited to see that you guys have this new test case creation wizard that will be coming to support Update 22. But during that time, Kainos did work with us and provided a number of reports that we could use to get the data from to set up our test case suite. So once again, we're excited about the new test case creation functionality. That will make it a lot more easier and faster to be able to build out future test cases. So our goal was really to build out a reusable and repeatable regression test suite that would help Tyco achieve our ultimate goals of making Workday Update testing automated, utilizing less time and resources.
Super, super. So in November, you completed your Workday 21 testing. Maybe you could share some testing stats with us. So, for example, before using Smart and then using Smart for Workday 20 and 21?
Sure, can do that. So we now have almost 80 integrations at Tyco. Before using Kainos Smart, we would run our integrations manually. Now we can use Kainos Smart to actually run our integrations at the push of a button. It will go ahead and will run the integration in the current update, and then it will run the integration in the new update. And at that point, we would have our files ready, and we could then go ahead and do a manual compare. So it's helped out in that area of actually running the integrations. The other part, which is bigger, would be with our business processes. So we now have this regression test suite of almost 800 test cases, scenarios, and we also still continue to leverage our regions to use Smart for adding additional test cases and setup and to actually execute these test cases. So with the introduction of being part of the early adopter program, and then with 21 also using Smart as a customer, we have realized a time and resource savings of roughly 40% for testing Workday updates. Now with Workday Update 22, we expect to continuously improve, and we expect to realize further savings, and especially now that we have this test case regression suite, as well as leveraging the new test case creation functionality in Smart, we believe that will help us greater, and we anticipate that resource savings to go even higher.
Brilliant. That's really good. And what benefits would you say have been most beneficial to Tyco, Mike?
Sure. So, definitely, running our integrations, it's been a great time saver for triggering all of our integrations in 2 different tenants. Being able to leverage a regression test suite for our updates and for future updates continue to be a great time savings. As well, by using Smart, we're able to automate these Workday transactions that are required to be executed in Workday to provide the data that's required for testing our integrations, such as, and most importantly, a number of our payroll integrations. So, with that being said, we definitely look forward to continue to use Kainos Smart for Update 22, and future updates to continue to use more automation to lessen our test time and number of resources. And we also look forward to the Kainos Smart tool product feature roadmap that will bring more feature functionality to the tool.
Mike, thank you so much. It was a really informative update. It's always good to hear back from a real-life customer. I would like just to take this opportunity to thank Mike and his team for their continued support and particularly for their invaluable input as we plan for future releases of Smart. Also, it's great to be able to announce that Tyco has just signed up for a further 3-year term with Kainos Smart, so we're really, really pleased to have you guys on board as a customer.
Sure,
okay.
you're welcome, and we look forward to the continued partnership.
Excellent. Okay. So the good news is we're bang on time. We have approximately 10 minutes left for some Q&A. So I'm just going to kick right in here with some of the questions. There's lots of questions coming through. Probably not going to get to all of them, but we'll do what we can. So first one here is, how is Smart sold? So Smart is sold using a software as a service model, so it's really analogous to how you purchase Workday itself. You sign up for a term of X years for the Smart service, and it's based on the number of employees in your Workday configuration. There's another one here related to pricing, and I can't quite understand that question, so I'm going to move on. Okay. It says, it's trying to say, I think, that we're a small organization of less than 1,000 users. Can we use Smart, or is it only for large organizations like Tyco? Not at all. You absolutely can use the Smart product, and we actually do have a price point, an introductory price point for smaller organizations. So I'll follow that one up with you separately. Next question is Workday Financials part of your product? Financials isn't supported in the product right now, but it is absolutely on our product roadmap. Another roadmap related question, do you support Change Job? Quite a few people have asked this actually. The answer is yes, our Smart 2014 release does support Change Job. Can you share your product roadmap? Unfortunately, in this kind of session, we can't share full details of our roadmap outside of individual NDAs being in place with various prospects and customers. You'll appreciate this is to protect our IP and so on. However, I can say that our goal is to deliver test automation coverage right across the Workday product. Where Workday goes, we will boldly follow, basically. As we progress with individual companies in more detail, we'll be more than happy to share more details of our product roadmap. Okay. Mike, there's a question here for you, if that's okay. It says, Mike mentioned achieving savings of 40% to date with testing using Smart. Does he expect this number to change? Mike?
Sure, I can answer that. Yeah, so with update 22 and the new functionality that's being offered, the test case creation wizard, that will definitely help to lessen time. And as we continue to build up our regression test suite, that also continues to be a time saver. And also to Kainos, in one of their future updates of their product, if you remember, I was talking about integrations, and the tool has the ability to run those integrations, but Kainos is going to hopefully take that a step further and build the comparison of the outputted integration files into the product. So as these additional features, functions are added, Tyco definitely plans on leveraging them and hope to see our achieve savings of 40% grow higher.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Sure.
Okay, we have a few questions here about the test case creation wizard. So it is one of the new features in our Smart 2014 release. I guess, Rory, this is one for you. You demonstrated the request one-time payment process in the test creation wizard, but does the wizard work for more I think this says involve processes like hire. So the answer is yes. We support the test case creation wizard will work for all of the business processes that we support today. In our demo today, we were using a set of higher test cases we have prepared previously, but I think we have some time that we can maybe show you that now, Rory.
Sure. Let me just go back into the wizard. Let me just go back into the wizard here in Smart. Again, just like we did earlier, we select the business process we want to create tests for, and then select the tenant we want to take the configuration and data from. We'll then select the person who will be initiating the hire. Let's take Jamie Oliver this time. Because this is a hire, the next few steps in the wizard are different from the request one-time payment wizard we went through earlier. We'll first enter the supervisory organization the applicant is going to be hired into. As the sales and marketing organization operates a position management staffing model, Smart has dynamically returned a list of current open positions in that organization. The only current open position in sales and marketing at the minute is for an associate consultant. We then select whether we want to use an applicant that already exists in the Workday tenant or whether we want to create a new applicant as part of this hire. I'm going to create a new applicant as part for this example. So I enter the applicant forename and surname, and we only need to supply one more piece of data. For the hire wizard, we use data from already existing employees in the Workday tenant as a basis for populating data into the Smart workbooks. So we must select the existing employee we want to use. We'll take Bridget Jones here as we used her in the earlier example. Finally, we enter our identification and validation data and whether to rescind or cancel the hire. Then we add it to the basket. This process can then be repeated for the other hire test cases we want to create. And finally, we generate our hire SmartBook. Voila! Smart creates the hire SmartBook, populated with all the data required to execute the 5 hire test cases. The eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that this SmartBook has multiple tabs, whereas the request one-time payment SmartBook we created earlier only had a single tab. The reason for this is because the hire process in the tenant the wizard is looking at is much more complex. Each tab here has been populated with the relevant data required to execute that step of the hire, assigning the new employee to the appropriate organizations, entering the employee's date of birth, marital status, etc., assigning the new employee to the appropriate pay group, and so on. This SmartBook is executable. You can load it into the test run in Smart, and 20 minutes later, all 5 hires will have been completed in the Workday tenant. Hopefully that sufficiently answers the question, Sheila.
Okay, I think it does, Rory. There's another related question here. So it says, can I edit the Excel spreadsheets that contain the test cases manually? You absolutely can. For example, you might want to use the test case creation wizard, as Rory has just done, to create a sample of test cases, but then you could copy and paste those into additional columns in your SmartBook. So each column in the SmartBook represents an individual test case, and you can create as many of those as you wish. Once you have your some test cases created, you can manually tweak and edit those to your heart's content, really. Okay, so we have a couple of minutes left, and maybe take 2 more questions. So there's one here about security. So you said that Smart uses a cloud model. Are you storing data in the cloud, and how is our data securely stored? So this is probably the most common question that we get asked. So first of all, yes, your test case data is stored in the cloud. And for our North American customers, the data center is in the US. Other customers, the data center will be stored in Europe. Our security model in Smart is trust no one. So all data is encrypted in transit and in rest. we don't have the decryption keys and so on. So we can set up further conversations with, I guess, our security expert on that. But I think you'll find our product is very, very secure. Perhaps the last question here is, how often will I need to change the automation scripts behind Smart? I believe these are Selenium. So yes, our Smart product behind the scenes does indeed use Selenium. But in short, you don't actually have to maintain anything in the automation scripts. That's our job in Kainos. We develop them, we maintain them, and it is our commitment to you that as we maintain the Smart product going forward, we maintain those automation scripts as well in line with each Workday release. So there's no automation scripts for you to worry about. Okay, there are lots of questions I haven't answered there. We will follow these all up with a response to you, so bear with us and we'll get that to you in due course. Apologies if we didn't get to the particular question that you raised. I would just like to conclude really by giving you a little bit of information about how to get in touch with us some more. Hopefully we've whet your appetite a wee bit in the session today. So for those of you attending the European Rising, please do come and see us. Kainos and one of our Smart customers will be co-presenting with Doug Timpe in a session called Tips and Techniques Optimizing Your Workday Testing with Automation. So that's on Tuesday the 1st of April. Will Murray from Kainos, who heads up our test automation practice and also looks after our professional services team within Smart, will be presenting at that session. There's not much about automation that Will won't be able to tell you. You can also reach us at our email address, smart@kainos.com, and you can visit our website at www.kainossmart.com. So all that's left for me to do is to thank my co-presenters for joining me today and to thank you all for attending the session, whether it's morning,